Good morning. My name is Sue, and I am going to be covering a story that I saw in a magazine a couple of years ago. It involves a young lady who saw the future. Her name was Linda, and she lived in a small town in western Massachusetts. She was married to her doctor husband, where she worked as an RN at a local hospital. She was a well-known person. She specialized in cardiovascular, as her husband did. And they had been married almost 4 years when they bought their first home, a modest modular home that was in the what they would call a 100 home division, where every home basically looked the same. But it was their first home, brand new, and she had a new career as a nurse. He had a career as a doctor. And one day she was in her cellar doing laundry when she heard a noise that drew her attention. To her dismay, she saw a man carrying a woman who had obviously died in his arms. She watched him as he carried her past her, not even noticing her, like she didn't exist, down the long wall of the cellar. Now, the cellar was brand new, and it was unused, but there was one part that she had always thought was kind of dark and dreary, and for some reason, this man chose the spot. She watched in amazement as the man dug into the wall, trying to make some space. He obviously was making plans to put a hole in her scary place in the cellar. Now, at this point, she runs up the stairs and she's yelling to her husband, who finds it amusing. He puts it off as hysterical woman or new mother jiver. He just didn't know what to do. But the next day, she went back down to do laundry, and there was the man again. There was no denying that there was some guy in her cellar that was digging a hole. By the time he stopped, there was now a 6-foot hole in the wall. And she watched as the man picked up the body and placed it inside the wall. She ran upstairs, got her husband, who came back down into the cellar. And this time, although he had a laugh on his face, he was beginning to wonder what was going on. He knew his wife to be an honest and a logical person, not known to be hysterical. She was a professional. He'd worked alongside her and knew that this was not a normal behavior. This was a brand new house where there shouldn't be any work that had been done. It's just the cellar should look brand new. So, once again, he went down the cellar and saw nothing. 3 days later, poor Linda went down, and there was the body on the cellar floor once again. She just didn't know what to do. So they finally decided to call a friend of theirs, an officer, to come down and take a look at their home and tell them what had happened. The officer listened carefully, but told them that they could do whatever they wanted. The home was theirs, but he was not going to be able to do anything to it. They could go, they could check it out. So days went by, and Linda went back in the cellar, and this time she saw the man covering up the hole that he had placed. And this time there was no body. It had been taken care of. And she just didn't know what to do. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. She called the police. Again, Officer O'Brien listened, but he said that was nothing that she could do. So, in a panic, she demanded that a contractor come out and dig up the hole. They did, and unfortunately, the hole was empty. There was nothing. There was nothing she could do, and so she left town in humiliation. It had been 20 years since she'd been back to the town, and it was going to be her class reunion, and that was when she decided that she was going to go back. She went to the class reunion, and she was having a good time with her friends. They were celebrating. It had been a long time, and although she was still the butt of some jokes, she was now a respected nurse, and she was married to a doctor, and people accepted her. She was sitting at the table with a group of her friends when she looked over, and to her dismay, she saw the man that she had seen digging the hole in her wall in her house. She absolutely panicked, asked anybody if they knew who he was. Oh, yes, they knew who he was. He had at one point moved into her old home and was living there. He had had a rough life, and his wife had run off with the baker. Now, this is something that she knew wasn't true. She knew that this man had murdered his wife, and she immediately called her friend, the officer that had helped them a long time ago, and told him that she saw the man that had originally been at her house and had dug the hole, and she had seen him burying the person. This time, the officer listened. He had always suspected that there was something going on. And even he had remembered the young lady, Linda, who had lived at that home at one time and said that a woman had been murdered there. But it had been 12 years since that had happened, and now this man's wife was missing. He had to beg and beg and beg, but he finally got a court order that allowed him to go into the man's house. And there they dug up the hole where she said it was, and as they peered in, there to their shock was the woman who had been buried many years ago in a near mummified state. Yes, that Linda had been right. She had seen something that was not going to happen for a period of 12 years. She had accurately described where it was, who had done it. She recognized the man. She knew who had been murdered. It was an absolutely fascinating story. When the police finally came and brought up all the information and everything, they asked the man, why did he bury his wife in that one spot? And he said, it was simple. It was the one spot in the cellar that he could see had been originally dug up at another point. And it was easier for him to dig into that one spot and put his wife in there. So he admitted to doing the murder, and this mystery is now a paranormal experience with no explanation. I hope you enjoyed the story, It's a great story, and thank you.